Carlo Ancelotti with these 26 players. The headlines throughout each line of the pitch. Alisson and Ederson are the goalkeepers, as they have been for such a long time. Bremer, Gabriel Magalhaes in that defense, in that center of defense. The fullbacks with some questions there. Marquinhos obviously involved in there as well. In midfield, Bruno Guimaraes, Casemiro, Danilo, Fabinho, and Lucas Paquetá. But the headline that everyone is talking about, Neymar Jr. has been named into the Seleção for the World Cup in 2026, along with Endrick and Gabriel Martinelli and Igor Thiago and Luis Enrique and Mateus Cunha and Rafinha and Ryan and Vini Jr. An incredible group of attackers for this group.
Did you miss anyone's name out? Or?
I don't think so. But let's bring in Mbizo Mzamane, our South American football expert. Mbizo, we have to start with Neymar. So much debate about whether or not he was going to be involved in this squad. He hasn't played for the Brazilian national side since 2023, and yet he gets named into this group. Are you surprised? Are you surprised that he makes it?
If we had been talking about this 6 months ago, and for quite some time, quite a few months, I was against his calling up. I thought he wasn't ready. He couldn't play. But really, the tide has turned. And I think with so many missing players, with so many players who perhaps don't have the kind of, bank that he has with the Brazilian squad, haven't really been performing at a level that would displace a player who has that kind of history. So am I surprised? No, not particularly. But I just think there hasn't been ever in Brazil's history such a polarizing selection where you have half the nation who is devastated by this decision, frankly, who think it's a joke. And you have the other half who believe there was no way to leave him out and not go with him. But personally, I'm not surprised based on the context. Players being injured, players missing. Estevan is a huge one. Rodrigo is a huge one. And I think the squad needs a player like Neymar.
I'm so glad you said that, Mbizo, in terms of needing a player like Neymar, because Brazil has always had stars, dating back to the 50s to where we are right now. And if you're talking about a star-studded World Cup, well, there's probably not going to be one that's going to be more entertainment-based than this one that we're getting ourselves ready for. But what's your overall thoughts on the squad? And are you surprised of how many players that were chosen from the domestic side of Brazil's clubs?
Yeah, actually, it's a historic selection for as many players that they had that are playing domestically, which I think in some ways might cause some anxiety for others and think, well, are they at the level sufficient to play against the best in the world? But then you have others who say, well, it shows that the level of Brazilian football domestically is rising. I liked it. I liked the balance of the squad. There were a few surprises. I mean, but not consequential ones, I believe. For example, Weverton. I was surprised to see him in there over Hugo Souza, but he's probably not going to end up playing much. Anyway, I think Ryan was a bit of a shock, but again, he's the type of player who can create magic out of very little, and I think Brazil is kind of needing that right now. Brazil is missing that right now. I think that the midfield is also good. I think the midfield is good. Fabinho, probably a little bit of a surprise, but I think Danilo is quite the player, and I think over the last couple of months, he's shown how good he can be, not just playing for Botafogo some years ago for Fluminense as they won the Libertadores, but he's also done extremely well when given the opportunity in the yellow jersey. So I'm delighted to have seen him selected. I'm not surprised by the team. I think it's a good one.
And Mbizo, to get back to the Neymar subject for a second, I'm curious, when you talk about star players of this level and this quality, it can be difficult to leave players like this on the bench. And just because the cameras will cut to him, the discussions after the game to the coach will be, why don't you put him in? Why don't you put him in sooner? Do you think that Ancelotti goes into the opening game of the tournament with Neymar in the starting 11?
I think it would be too much pressure on Neymar. I think because if you start him in that initial game, the expectation will be that he's there because he can do what Neymar has always done. And since we know that he can't, I think that would be a poor decision. I think Neymar needs to be prepared to not be a starring player, which I think if Ancelotti has included him, I think Ancelotti does believe in his capacity to contribute, in a bit part essence with his leadership as well. And I think Neymar also gives, I think, the other players a bit more freedom because some of the pressure, some of the talking points will shift away from other players. So perhaps that was strategic as well, knowing that the world will really look at Neymar and it kind of divide attention from other players who may not be ready to step into that limelight. So it's possible, it's a risk, but when you're the coach of Brazil, you do, you're damned, you do, you don't. You're damned either way.
And Mbizo, I'm really so happy you spoke about that part in terms of the mental edge that he could give this team by taking the spotlight and the attention away from them. I'm going to hark back to something that Cafu spoke about this week. We said when we won in 2002, we were able to share the spotlight between the Ronaldos, the Rivaldos, the Ronaldinhos. Everybody was a star, and so it allowed us all to be stars. Now you think about this team, do you feel it's going to be a benefit because Neymar is the focal point and the others can now elevate themselves in terms of in this new stardom?
Yeah, I mean, consider the amount of pressure that would have been on Vinicius Jr. if there was no Neymar. Do you know what I mean? I mean, a player like that, especially with the fact that he hasn't played well for the Seleção, now everybody's like, okay, buddy, you have to be better. You have to be the best. And perhaps, you know, with Neymar's presence, you know, he'll feel like, you know, I don't have to do it alone. I have the support of a player who, you know, when I was coming into the national team, was the guy, helped me adapt. And I think the entire squad in general will feel a bit of relief to have what really, you know, we talk a lot about Neymar's failures, but he has had to have incredibly broad shoulders from the time he was 15, 16. And I think in many instances, he's maybe perhaps failed to do that, but in many others, he has done exactly that. So yeah, I think it gives the squad a bit of a boost morally. I think again, the country will be split. You know, it's very polarizing. But come cup time, when Neymar is hopefully contributing in the ways we know he can, I think that will all die down, and we'll all just be happy to have him there.
Mbizo, can we show the video of the reaction within the ceremony? Dignitaries there. Let's see this here when that graphic flashes up on the screen with his name there from Ancelotti. There's a cut to the crowd and there's people jumping up and down. I think this is the reaction that everyone was waiting for across the nation. Was he going to be included or was he not? And there are people in Brazil that will die for Neymar, that think that he is the sort of heir of the current generation to what came before him. What do you make of this reaction that we're seeing here from the people that were in attendance?
I think it dwarfs in comparison to the fireworks I heard all up and down my street as soon as they heard his name. I mean, the noise was unbelievable. And again, I mean, it's difficult to imagine a player that's been so polarizing and people are wondering, will he be there? And in an era, like you said, where, you know, there's just so few like him. So I think it was important to have him in the squad. And I think he's going to give an incredible contribution. I mean, that reaction makes sense. You know, Brazilians are anxious. We're not sure if we're going to be embarrassing or if we're going to be brilliant. And just having Neymar gives us a calm and a composure that perhaps we really needed.
Mbizo, do you think that Brazil are among the favorites to win the competition per the bookies? They're fourth favorites to win. How do you see them playing out in this World Cup?
You're not putting pressure on him already. The squad just got announced.
No, that's too much. I mean, among the favorites is too much. I mean, obviously, because of history, you have to say that Brazil must go far. They must go deep into the competition. They have to go further than they have been going before, of course. Always the expectation is final, competing. But to say that they're among the best in the world, I think puts too much pressure on the team, a pressure they don't need, that will be detrimental. For example, I think a Portugal is better placed. I think an Argentina is better placed. A Germany is better placed simply because of their performances leading up to this and the balance of the squad and the fact that they probably have a little less pressure. Are they among the favorites? No dice.
Well, they're fourth favorites in the bookies, but Mbizo talking that down in that group with Morocco, Haiti, and Scotland. We'll see how this group plays out at the World Cup in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Mbizo, thank you for the time, sir.
Appreciate you, Mbizo.
Thank you so much for having me, gents. Thank you, boys.
JD, we were having the Neymar debate before the squad announcement. We were watching it right before we went on air. What did you make ultimately of that decision?
I think it's the right decision. And I always say it because of what Mbizo just alluded to right there. The attention that Neymar is going to galvanize around that squad is going to be put on him. And that's okay, because he's been dealing with it since 2010, since he was the undisputed poster boy of this football. He's been dealing with it for 16 years. And he gets to go into a World Cup and say goodbye on his terms. With other legends, I might add, because some people will say the same about Leo Messi. Is he over the edge? Some people will turn around and say the same about Cristiano Ronaldo. Is he past his best? It doesn't really matter, because this is a World Cup and it's also a showcase of people that have paved the way for the next generation of footballers. There is nobody in Brazil that has carried the pressure, understands the responsibility of wearing that gold like Neymar does. And let's still not forget, like, in big tournaments, he does turn up. The Olympics, Copa Americas, we've seen the best of Neymar. So if you can get glimpses of that brilliance, and class never ever diminishes, no matter how old you get, he's still going to be able to contribute and give to games that I don't think a lot of players will have the ability to do so. And that right there is enough. But that moment, in terms of that pressure, that taking the attention away from your teammates, will allow other stars to grow. Your Cunha's, your João Pedro's, your Bruno Guimarães, like, because all of a sudden everybody's asking questions about Neymar, and I can just focus on the 7-8 games in terms of what we need to do to win a tournament. And that right there is the only focus in Brazil, because they are one of the only nations, no matter how high or how low their squad quality is, it's win or go home as far as they're concerned. And I know that Neymar understands that. Neymar knows that he understands that. And now the rest of the players will understand that going into this type of tournament.
Yeah, Vinicius Jr., another one to step up as well. I have a friend who absolutely loves Neymar. He's Brazilian, and he thinks that he should start where the captain's armband and play in every game of the World Cup.
Who's it, Mbizo Mzamane?
Well, he was saying that he shouldn't start. What kind of role do you think he has, quickly?
I think Ancelotti will utilise him very well. I think he will utilise him in certain games where he knows he's going to be ball dominant, i.e. your Haiti game, maybe even your Scotland game, and in Morocco games where you know you might have to defend a little bit more. I think he'll use him quite tactically and use him quite aware. He'll be a good squad player to have. And when you have quality like that, how can you deny it? If someone Neymar does a flip-flap on somebody, don't tell me it's not going viral. End of discussion there, man. Let's go to break.